You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Saving lives by selling collars, scrunchies, and swag. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That's BARKNWAG.com to see the awesome merchandise. Bark and Wag collars and leashes, collar covers, and decorative bandanas are perfect for your pooch. For the owner of the house, we have t-shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts, hats, and even coasters. We are expanding monthly, so be sure to check back. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise too, so send an email to polly@barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Cindy Myers, animal listener and intuitive coach. Hi, Cindy.
Hey, Polly.
Well, thank you for coming back. Last week you told us about the horse story and the transport and how you helped the horse become 100% healthy. And I wanted to have you back because I understand you just recently helped a rescue dog that had been stuck in his crate in the basement, which is very sad. And so I just wanted to find out what happened and how you helped.
Yeah, this little guy we believe he was probably from a breeder-hoarder kind of a situation, and he had been kept in the basement, we believe, pretty much the entire time. He was rescued from the situation. He had not been socialized in any way, not handled by very many people. His most basic needs were barely met. And so when he was rescued, he had zero skills or social awareness of anything. And so he was just absolutely riddled with anxiety. He didn't like to be touched. He had no idea what that meant to be petted. He didn't know about, anything. He didn't know about any sights or sounds. Just imagine if you had total sensory deprivation and then you came out into the world. It was just absolutely overload to him. And so he was just really, really frightened of everything. Every sight, every sound, even coming down to get petted was not, there was nothing to do almost to soothe him and make him feel comfortable. So we started working with him, and I give 1,000% credit to his person, because what a dedicated person. She helped. She hired me. She takes him in for Reiki and chiropractic care regularly. So we called ourselves of the full team. She brought in a whole team of people to help this little guy. Aww. And what I did was remove trapped emotions and be able to communicate to her what some of the things were that most frightened him, so that we could help teach him how to be a little dog. So one of the most frightening things to him was the kitchen, because he the drawers open and close, but he had no idea that the person was opening and closing the cabinets and the doors, and things would make noises or something would drop on the floor, and that would just totally freak him out. So I was able, once I realized that he had no idea what was causing the noises, I had him sit. I communicated him to sit at a safe distance, but where he could see, and watch how the person was moving, and that it was her opening and closing, or a family member that was, their hands were the ones that were making the things move. And so then he started to settle down and be less afraid in the kitchen. And then I gave her some techniques, or showed her or gave her some ideas on how to work with him to get him used to being touched and petted. And so now this little guy, I've worked with him for over a year now, and he is now He loves his butt scratched. He loves car rides. He loves to play. Came up with his own game. He didn't know how to play games. He didn't know about toys. So he's learned how to play. He has a little chase game that he likes to do. I mean, the best comment I ever got feedback was, he's like a real dog now. Because he didn't know how to be a dog before, and now he's actually behaving like a very spoiled little guy. He's spoiled rotten. He quite often asks. He loves fried eggs. So when he's talking to me, he'll ask. I'll always ask him if there's anything he wants me to ask his person, and it's usually, "Can I have a fried egg?"
Oh, that's so
he
cute.
loves eggs. So he's doing really phenomenally. He was, because of such extreme anxiety, he had horrible skin issues. He would get hot spots all the time. He hasn't had a hot spot in ages. He was also very OCD. He would lick his paws until they were just a mucky mess and sore and raw. And he licks his paw, but it's only to groom now, normal grooming. So he has given up a lot of his OCD kind of behavior. He still has some anxiety, but nothing like what it was before. So he is a true little guy now, a true little dog that is happy and loving.
And does he, will he go in his crate, or is that kind of...
That is his safe space. He likes his crate. And that was where we started, because that's where he felt safest. So we would start where he felt safe, and we built from there.
Well, the dog owner must just be ecstatic.
Oh, she's thrilled. She's so in love with this little guy, and it's returned now. He absolutely loves her. He dotes on. He doesn't want to ever leave her sight.
Well, I also think with animals, I mean, even, they want that security and they want that safety. So,
one of the last things he communicated to me in one of our last sessions was, he said, "I don't like to think about the old life anymore. It makes me sad." He says, and what he does is he really fully appreciates the life that he has now. And so I told him, don't think about it anymore. He doesn't need to think about his old life. It doesn't pertain to his life now.
No,
he's loved.
right. Always
so it's okay to let go.
Yeah, always move forward.
Yeah. So that was sweet that he could kind of tell the before and after now, and that he just didn't want to think about it anymore.
And you work with a lot of rescue organizations?
I do. Not necessarily organizations. I work with a lot of people that have rescued animals, because they quite often have some issues coming home. They're loved, but they come home with a habit, or they have anxiety. I have one person that I work with pretty regularly that fosters a lot of dogs, and so a lot of the dogs she has have issues that need to be resolved before she can rehome them. And so so I do work with her quite regularly to help release some of the trapped emotions and give her some tips or ideas on what specifically those dogs need to help correct behaviors or anxiety issues.
Oh, well, that's just wonderful. Well, thank you for being on the podcast, and we look forward to having you back.
I look forward to coming back.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.